Daily Ticker is brought to you by Pelican Brewing. Visit pelicanbrewing.com for more details on locations, events, award-winning beers, independently brewed since 1996. Pelican Brewing, born at the beach. We're talking a lot of Blazers here today, and it's because Jeremy Grant might be moved, Anthony Simons might be moved, and we're about a little over a week, or less, I should say, less than a week away from when the NBA draft was. Joining us now is our good buddy Erik Gunderson. Blazer Banter on Twitter, the Blazer Banter Substack. Go check it out. And Gundy, good morning to you. I want to start by reading Blazer Banter tweets, and I want to see if you feel the same way.
You know, it's weird. Can I interrupt this real quick?
Yeah, what do you got?
We've known Gundy a long time, and he's got multiple Twitter accounts.
He does.
I somehow separate Blazer Banter into some like alter ego split person that exists from Erik Gunderson.
What was that M. Night Shyamalan movie with the guy with like 11 different personalities?
I think it's Split. I think it's
Split,
called
is that what it's
Split,
called?
yeah.
He's the split of Blazer
Yes.
Media. Is that what you're telling me? So this is on the Avdia trade, which happened on draft night. And you tweeted, well, they made a move for a young player under 25. Time will tell whether it was a good move or not. And then added, because people seem very universally beloved of the move. Like, oh, what a great move. Cronin's great. He said his contract's very nice if he continues to improve, but that's a big if. And the price might be a little steep, but they're clearly betting on continued growth. We've had a few days to digest the move and draft night. Before we get to other trades, let's go back to last Thursday. How do we feel about the trade and the draft?
Look, I think ultimately the draft was a good draft. If you zoom out, obviously, and you don't, they have a center, right? But also, they might not have a center in 2 years. And so, if you're going to be a good team in the West, getting Klingon, a 7'3" dude, to go against these enormous dudes in the West, like Wemby and Holmgren, to say nothing of Jokic and those guys too, like that, you just need size to go against those guys. And Minnesota, we saw, had a lot of success with that. As for Denny, I mean, he had a great year. I think the one thing I would say is that, player growth isn't always linear. Like, he had a great season last year, but like, who else had like a really great shooting season that was an aberration, and then he went back to not making threes anymore, was Al-Farouq Aminu.
Oh no!
My God! And I'm just saying, I think Denny has way more of a bag. I think Denny can create more off the dribble. I think there's a lot of potential there with Denny, but I just think we got to be careful with the 3-point shooting because he did improve last year, but B, not a high volume. Three attempts a game is not a lot.
Yeah.
I think he did improve, and I think that's a good sign. And I think it's a worthwhile bet to make. But I'm just saying, like, there is potential that it doesn't pay off on the other end.
Do you feel like, though, you've got a glimpse? I was listening to a bunch of stuff immediately after the draft the next day, and one thing I heard from Zach Lowe was basically, and he was talking to Gavoni, and of course Gavoni is what side of the camp he's going to defend there in that conversation on our beloved Blazers. But Lowe was like, I don't really know what this team is. Do you feel like, though, we got kind of a snapshot look of the direction they're going with Scoot Shaden, drafting Klingon, Denny is, in his young 20s. Like, do you have an idea or feel like you have a feel for what the direction Joe is taking this in?
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like they have like some position, like they have some guys in positions that are starting to get defined a little bit. I mean, you throw Tumani in there, and you've got a pretty decent, 5-man lineup where most of the guys can guard. I think that's probably the one thing I'm underrating probably about Denny right now is that he's a really good defender, and I think that I'm looking at his numbers and his stats and his 3-point shooting, but he can also defend. He can handle the ball. Like, it's not just those two things. And I see why they got him, because he can guard. And that seems to be something that they want. They want to have guys that are, defense first players, or at least treat defense as seriously as they treat the offense. So, Scoot and Shaden, I think Scoot has just had some things to learn about, off-ball NBA defense. But I think when he's on the ball, he's doing well, and I think Shaden, when Shaden's on a guy, he really takes pride in defending. So I think you can see the outline of a team that really cares about defense with Denny, Shaden, Tumani, Klingon, and obviously, one thing I kind of didn't really think about as much as clinging to is that like he only plays like 20 minutes a game, so you've got to have another center. So to platoon a little bit.
Now, I know you're a sicko, Gundy, because I follow you on Twitter, and I'll see like a 6:30 a.m. tweet about a Turkish basketball league and player that I've never heard of before.
He's also a sick, degenerate gambling on those games.
Yes, he is, which, hey, I can appreciate that. I want to test the level, and we're in the trust tree here because I had to fully acknowledge and admit on the air the next day, I've never heard of Denny Avdia. Never heard of him. I don't remember him in the draft in 2020, and I can't tell you the last time I watched a Washington Wizards basketball game. How many Wizards games did Erik Gunderson watch last year?
Oh, I think like the 2 that they had against the Blazers, and that was pretty much it.
Okay, that was it. Okay. So even your level of sicko is cut off with 21-win Wizards. It's like, I'm not going that far.
No. Like, well, like I thought I did have some interest. I might have watched a couple more just because I had some interest / bets on Jordan Poole to have a good season, and he was horrible at the start of the season. So I had to catch some of that. And then, but no, I mean, in the games against like Denny being improving was like a story for the Wizards, whatever stories they had. Like, but yeah, I mean, I'm glad that he improved, and it's a worthwhile bet. And there's probably not a lot of guys under 25 that were available that Portland could go after to get, and so. I see it from their perspective, like in getting a player that, especially when you look back and read all of Mike Schmitz's draft coverage of the Denny draft when he was drafted with James Wiseman and Anthony Edwards, and he put them in the same class as Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, and these guys. So he's clearly very high on him. So I'll trust him because he's the biggest sicko there is.
I almost wonder, too, how much we're just – hey, I was on TV and I loved this guy, and then we pick him. More so, and sometimes it kind of feels like that's the way it's operating because everybody is finding highlights of him talking about this player in 2019, 2020, and now look who the Portland Trailblazers have gotten. I am curious about Denny and Scoot, and maybe we did trade for Alk Farouk Amino. I've certainly been on the position of having bad takes on trades. Mike Richmond's highlighted that in my life, but I am curious. The one thing that I'm hung up on is I think the Chauncey thing is weird. And you can certainly you can
I think that's an agreement.
You can certainly
anybody that doesn't think it's weird.
Well, you can certainly make a case that it's like, well, it's 1 year and they didn't have their guy and yada yada yada. But like this is pretty pivotal stuff. This is year 2 for Scoot after a pretty bad year. I know he finished strong, but come on, let's be honest here. Wasn't a good year. Brandon Miller significantly outplayed him. Shaden didn't give you anything. He played 30 games. You're going in now with this kind of young. Now you got Klingon here in the rotation with what he's going to be with Ayton and Rob Williams coming back from injury. I just kind of find it odd. I'll be critical here. I think it's really odd to have a lame duck coach in what I think is a pretty big growth year, because what is this year going to be for those players when the advice they're getting is from a guy who right now it appears won't be back here after next season?
I totally agree with you. It's super weird. It's not it doesn't feel like the type of environment you'd like to have for your young team to grow into, right? Like everyone talks about Oklahoma City or even Orlando. Like they had young coaches that they had grow with their teams. They did not have coaches that everyone was thinking, well, he's probably going to be gone. And so, which makes me rethink the whole, do we know he's actually going to be gone now? Like, I don't know anymore.
When they have picked up the option at this point?
They would, you would think, but like, I mean, it does seem like there's really no rhyme or reason with what's going on right there with that. Like, I mean, if Phoenix was really interested in him and they really blocked it, it does seem like a weird choice, right? Unless they actually felt strongly about him in some way. And so I'm starting to think of like, I don't know, like, but of course Chauncey would like his extension. It feels like he's a lame duck coach, but part of, my concern is that like, it feels like a lot of really good coaches just got hired and a lot of spots, are gone, and a lot of, up and coming assistants. I know there'll be another round of that next summer, but it does feel like they missed an opportunity with guys like Jordy Fernandez or even a JB Bickerstaff, who, I think has been a good coach, and he just didn't really vibe with Donovan Mitchell, and that's why he wasn't the coach in Cleveland anymore, like more so than anything. And now he just got a 5-year deal to coach Detroit. So I do think that waiting not only it makes a pivotal season complicated for no reason with the having this coach situation, but also I feel like by waiting they've missed out on some potentially really good coaches that could have worked here if they are going to actually fire him.
Let's get to the news that might be coming this week. I'm just curious your thoughts on Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons. Make sense to trade one more than the other, make sense to trade both, and then we love getting high on our own supply here, and we overvalue our prospects. Kind of a rite of passage for Blazer fans over the years. What is fair market value in your mind for each of them if they are traded?
I mean, fair market value, that's a tough call. But, I think right now, considering the Lakers are the suitor for Jeremy Grant and that all of their other options to make the team better have kind of have been exhausted, I feel like you could drive the price up on them. So, I think you ask for 2 firsts. And also, hey, we've talked a little bit about Portland doing a lot of favors for Clutch Sports. Like, what if a favor comes back the other way for once? Yeah. For the Blazers. Like, maybe this is why you do the business with them, so that when this time comes, you get the King's ransom from the Lakers, and you get both of their picks. Maybe you get Dalton Connect, and with the salary filler of Hachimura and Gabe Vincent, I just think you're in a better opportunity to leverage the Lakers right now than you are the Magic, because the Magic, who's the team that we're all thinking for Ant, I don't feel like I'm breaking any news there, I think they've got a lot more exciting things happening there, and they've also got some cash. Well, they had some cash space. They still have a little bit left. They've got Jonathan Isaac's non-guaranteed deal, which you could get sent back the other way, and they have some picks. And also, if they're in the market for an Anthony Simons, they have Anthony Black, who was a first-round lottery pick last year, who didn't play much because there were other guys in front of him. But I think get a first-round pick, maybe some seconds or another first. I think 2 firsts is worthwhile for Anthony Simons, considering how much he's going to help their ability to shoot the ball. And you get Simons with KCP, Franz Wagner, Paolo, and everyone else that they have on that team. That team's a problem in the East, and I'd put them up there with, Philly and the Knicks as teams that could challenge Boston. So I think if you're Orlando, it makes sense to do that move, and the cost of 2 first-round picks to become that type of team, I think is pretty reasonable. Granted, I could be overvaluing, but Ant is one of the best off-the-dribble three-point shooters in the league. That is not an exaggeration. And plus, I think with Jalen Suggs and a bunch of other good defenders with size, I think a lot of Ant's defensive deficiencies, and I think he's also gotten better as a defender, but I think, his size problems, they're a lot easier to get by with a huge team like Orlando, because pretty much everyone on that team is big for their position.
I don't disagree with you, but you're kind of painting it from the Orlando perspective, which makes sense and sounds good. I don't know if that's a good trade for Portland. You're getting 2 picks that won't be very good because Orlando's going to be good. They're giving up on Anthony Black, which kind of tells me what they think about Anthony Black already. I'm kind of eyeing the Spurs with him. I think it's a sneaky good move for them with Ant, age, fit, what they need. Wemby's going to be a decoy. I know he's not a great defender, Ant, and they've got that Atlanta pick. They probably don't want to give that up because next year's draft, but they've got that unprotected Atlanta pick next year, which would make me feel a hell of a lot better than anything Orlando's giving back pick-wise.
That's true. And I think San Antonio, as far as picks, is way more loaded. I think they've got 4 picks next year in the first round. So which obviously, Portland, we all want 2025 picks, right? so for Flag and the other guys too, there's Edgecombe, there's so many other dudes that I think could be in that 2025 draft that could be really intriguing. So I think Edgecombe's 2026 actually, but no, that's demand stuff. But Edgecombe still, I think would be sick. There's a lot of really good players in 2025, and I think if they can get more 2025 picks from the Spurs, I think it'd be great. I think the only concern there is if you do get Cooper Flag or you do get the guys that you eventually need to become a contender, you've just handed Ant over to Wemby who's going to be in your way for the next 10 to 15 years. So I think that if you get the Atlanta pick, maybe it's a conversation, or more picks enough to make it a conversation. But I do think the added bonus of sending Ant to the Eastern Conference makes a difference if, you are good enough to eventually face them. Now, obviously, Portland, we're a long way from that.
We're the worst team in the West, Gundy. I'm worried about not just
long,
San Antonio.
Baby. Not for long, baby. Erik Gunderson, go check out the Blazer Banter Substack at Blazer Banter on Twitter. Joining us from the toilet as he always does. Gundy, we love you. Thanks for the time as always, man.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you go, Erik Gunderson.